Okay, folks, why don't we get started? My name is Tom Sir. I'm the Executive Director of RioVision. And just a few preliminary comments. First of all, you may have noticed that we're sharing the community center tonight with the Girl Scouts. So they're over there. Do our best not to disturb them and vice versa. RioVision has had a series of monthly gatherings. It's gone by different names, but we have done this every month since we started as an organization in 2014. So this is one of a long series of what we now call the community forums. We do it at the second Monday of every month, 6, and with various topics of public interest. And of course, tonight, you all are here because we had our flyer going around talking about Brannan Island, our very own state park facility. What RioVision is trying to accomplish tonight, two things. First of all, we're aware that there's a lot of talk and misinformation or misconceptions about the state park, and we want to clarify that, answer questions that I'm sure many of you have about the state park and its operation. And so that's number one, is to get the facts together. And secondly, we're going to ask if people here and beyond, actually, if there are people in the Rio Vista and Greater Delta area who are interested in volunteering to help support the state park, or as it's called, the National Recreation Area. Start recreation, state recreation area. And so later on, after we've gotten into this, I'll send around a sheet to see if people want to volunteer. Sign up on here. That is our role tonight. Convening, seeing if there's some volunteers. If we do have volunteers, we have someone here, Corinne, from the Delta Bay Foundation, who is seeking state park permission to start a volunteer program. So we'll be working with her. I hope you all signed up when you came in. We like to keep track of who attends our events. And I'd also note that you see all this equipment here. We are being recorded and broadcast on Zoom, so that there will be a recording of this meeting available on one of our RioVision.
Yeah, on the RioVision YouTube channel.
Okay. We have YouTube channel. Anyway, so if anyone wants to know what went on and they couldn't be here tonight, they can tune in and watch that and see what we talked about. I do want to introduce Eric Chu, who's here next to me. Eric is he runs the Delta Bay
Park
Delta Bay, which is a marina and RV park on the Delta Loop. And they're the ones who have contracted with the state to run Brannan Island State Park. Now, Eric is very enthusiastic and he has a lot to say, but he has promised me that he will be quiet until he's asked a question. Okay?
Yes, sir. All right.
Thank you. We want it to be your meeting, a chance for you to ask your questions. And then, of course, if Eric has the answers, and there's some other staff here from the Delta Bay. The Park Delta Bay, thank you. Organization and the foundation who can answer questions about structures and so forth. So let me start off, if I may, with a little bit of history. What is now the Brannan Island State Recreation Area was actually created in 1926 to 29 from dredging of the shipping channels of the Sacramento River and so forth. And the dredgings were piled there and built up until the level of what is now the park is well above the river level. Then in 1950, our Rio Vista Chamber of Commerce, which has been around, as you know, a long time. In fact, tonight we have the Chamber's executive director here, Jim, who continues that organization. The Chamber led an effort to establish a state park in this area, the Delta area. And there was a donation of the land where the park now is. And in 1954, the state actually opened, I'm sorry, the donation was in 54, 335 acres, and what is now the park opened in 1956. So it's got a long history here. And I know a number of you probably remember from the early days that park. I know that my family and my kids, when they were little, we came out from East Bay to come to Brannan Island because it was such a nice facility. So there's a lot of memories in the community that go pretty far back. Over the decades since its opening, there was staffing provided by the state parks, and a lot of facilities were added, including 12 campsites, permanent toilets and showers, boat launch ramps and ample parking, a marina. Actually, it says 12, it should be 100 campsites, right?
120.
120, thank you. I left off a zero, that's why I don't see 120 campsites. Permanent toilets and showers. Hot showers?
Yes.
Hot showers, okay. Like any state, most state facilities. Boat launch ramps, ample parking, a marina, a fishing pier, a swimming beach, shaded picnic areas, group camping facilities, and walking trails. These were all developed in the intervening years. And then in 2012, state budget cuts. We had a rough time with the state budget. And a lot of state parks were closed or really downsized. And our park was closed. And there's been 2 closures since that time. Now, recently, Park Delta Bay, Eric's group, that maintains the park now, they were the sole bidder to take over the management. They were the only ones who were willing to step up and do this. So that's important to keep in mind. And this is under a concession contract with, of course, the state parks. Now, we know that it is true that the state parks have a fund, significant fund, to make some further improvements to Brannan Island. And they're in the planning stages now. In fact, some of us are going to be meeting with their planner soon. And they're talking about restoring the marina, update the bathroom and showers, maybe add a new visitor center. And then today it was mentioned that they would improve the beach. The beach is attractive because, you know, it's on a very calm part of the slough, and it's really good for little kids. Because most of the, you know, beaches around here, if they're on, like, if you were on the Sacramento River, went out to Sandy Beach, you do not want to go into that river, especially if you're a little kid. So it's very safe to go to that beach, and once it's improved, it'll be a really great facility and experience. So that funding is in place. They're planning exactly what to do with it, and it will happen, we are assured. We may be holding a further event when the people from state parks are available, and they can talk in more detail about what their plans are. But that's sometime in the future. At the present time, however, state parks do not provide any direct funding to the concessionaire for the operation of the park, the maintenance and all of the things that and cleanup and so forth, all the things that it takes to run the state park, staff, the entry booth and so forth, collect fees. The only source to cover those expenses are user fees, the entry fees, the camping fees, the boat launch fees, and so forth. So no funding from the state park. In fact, I understand that of that money that comes in user fees, a portion of it actually has to be paid to the state park. So that is not a very viable financial situation. And without some increased financial support, it's going to be very, very difficult to keep the park operating. And that's one of the reasons that we're here. Delta Bay Foundation, as I mentioned, it's a 501c3 nonprofit, and it has a Friends of the Park program and currently manages the volunteer camp hosts. Those are the only volunteers, I believe, that are in place right now.
There's also Rio Vista litter pickers, which is part of RioVision.
Yes, yes.
So that's been helping us out.
Yeah, our litter pickers from here, Rio Vista, have been out to the park. Also to help with the cleanup. So let's see. All right, so the foundation is seeking permission from state parks to build their volunteer program and to conduct further events out there, which does help with attendance. Let's see. Oh, I did want to cover one thing. There's been a little lack of information about the various types of state park facilities. So this is what I understand. Let me just mention, the mission of state parks is to provide health, inspiration, and education to the people of California by helping to preserve, number one, preserve the state's extraordinary biological diversity, protect its most valued natural and cultural resources. So preserve, protect, and the third one is to create opportunities for outdoor recreation. Now, as you can see, those three are not always compatible, because if you're trying to preserve and protect, and people want to run their four-wheelers or whatever they call them, off-road vehicles all over the place, you know, that's kind of a contradiction. So what the state apparently has done is they've structured their facilities and designations, and they're all acronyms, right? SVRA, what's an SVRA? A state vehicle recreation area. That's the one with the four-wheelers and the whatever. That is the most recreation-directed type of state park. And then we have the SRA, which is what we have, state recreation area. So the emphasis is still on recreation. We're not talking about vehicles running all over them. We're talking about less lighter uses like camping, boating, swimming, and so forth, windsurfing. And then there is the state park. That's the one we're most familiar with. And of course, there's a mixture there of preservation, protection, but also outdoor recreation. I think most of the facilities are actually parks. And we've probably all gone to those, maybe even camped in them. So, and the group with the highest protection are state reserves or preserves, who, you know, have the lightest possible footprint. You don't have you have a lot of areas where there's no vehicles allowed, just hiking trails maybe most. So those are the levels. And that's where we fit in this range of uses. By the way, before we start taking questions, you know, we're talking about funding and helping the park. I think that's something very helpful that I learned about when we went to visit with Eric, is that you can get an annual pass for $65 a year for the whole year to Brannan Island. And that will allow you to go out and use it as much as you want, day use. I would find that very handy because I have, since moving to Rio Vista, I wanted to find places where I could walk the dog, right? And so, other than on a street or a sidewalk. And there aren't many places like that. In fact, there aren't any. But at the state park, there are a lot of nice trails. There's a nice trail that loops the whole park. It's about 3 miles, I think. 3 miles. Yeah, and it goes by a lot of facilities. You have picnic areas, and once there is a swimming area, so take the kids or grandkids out there, and you can have a whole day of picnicking or whatever. $65, and of course that $65 is helpful to the park to support it financially. Okay? So that's one thing I would strongly suggest to people here in Rio Vista. That's one of the things I think we need to publicize. So let me stop unless there are any questions. Now we can ask questions. Yes.
Just because I think it adds some context, people may not notice. In 2012, when the state basically had the budget crisis, it identified this particular property along with one other. There were only 2 of all of their holdings that they turned over to a private operator because of, I believe the criteria was lack of use or participation in the park and costs. So I think that's pertinent. Also, the first operator prior to the current operator, I believe, walked away from renewing because, again, a cost issue and lack of attendance. So this area has a long history of having a problem attracting folks, and I think maintaining a budget to sustain itself. So I just want to make sure that that's put out there. It's a very current history, and I think it's what brings us here today. I think it's a rare thing. There were only 2 properties that were turned over.
There's another factor that was in on that too. From the conversation I had, is the state parks in Sacramento considered it a very remote location. They told me it would take them 2.5 hours to get to the park in Sacramento. And I asked them if they were riding a bike. So they were dead serious. They said that's the state parks. That's how they classify it, as a remote location. So, and the previous outfit wasn't getting support from the state either, so they brought it to that. So even when they filled the park up, it wasn't enough to make up the difference for all the different stuff. Is that American land? Yes. That's what I thought.
Also, the previous concessionaire was not in California. I believe he was from Colorado.
Yeah.
It was not a local operation.
I'll try my best to answer this question. So the previous operator was called American Land and Leisure. They were based in Utah. So, and then they operated about over 100 concessions. So they're a much larger operation than we are. We only operate one other facility, which is in Isleton. So it's hard for us to, support a continual loss. At Brannan Island, we're bringing in about 500,000 a year, and of that, we're probably losing about 50 to 100,000 a year. And it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but we're also supposed to get another 50,000 from the state to do the maintenance, and we're not getting that at this point. So, and then to your question, I think state parks ran into a issue with funding around 2012. And I believe they closed like close to a third of the parks at one point, but they reopened most of them, including Brannan Island. But when Brannan Island reopened, instead of being operated under state parks staff, it became operate under concession, and that's been the case since then. And I know when we took, it was an open bid. When the bid was open, there weren't a lot of people interested because it's been running, at a loss for 10 years, and who would step in and do that? So that was the situation. We're currently still operating at a loss.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Is there any, anything precluded from being done in the park, from the like, anything being precluded is used in the park, like having a music festival? You know, maybe a community affair
Yeah,
kind of
actually,
thing,
maybe Corinne, you can answer that question.
right?
I can speak to that, in Raleigh.
Here, we'll bring it around.
Can you hear me? That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking. If you don't know me, my name is Corinne Corley, and among other things, I do run the Delta Bay Foundation, and some of you might have been out to one of our events. We do the market out at Park Delta Bay. And so I, along with volunteers, started that market through the Delta Bay Foundation. And so to answer your question, you can have special events at the park with a permit. In fact, the Delta Bay Foundation did a special event at the park, and that's how we kind of first got involved in wanting to help the park. It's not a difficult permit process, but it is regulated. But what we're trying to do now, and what we've proposed to Park Delta Bay and to the state in a meeting that we had last week, is that we would actually coordinate volunteers and events at the park. And so that would enable us, because we're a 501c3, that would enable us to actually seek county, state, federal, and private grant money for events at the park, which we would apply for, hopefully get and manage. We've already done that once. We got a TRT grant, which I keep calling a TIF grant because that's what we have back home where I'm from. But we got a TRT grant in 2023. We had an event at the park. It was successful. We brought a lot of people there. It was a smaller event, but we were just starting to try it. We didn't want to be too big at first. And just today, I received an invitation to apply for that same grant again. So we put in a proposal to the Parks Department for a two-tier approach. One to run manage volunteers, and the other to begin to host or coordinate events. And I feel reasonably sure that they will approve our proposal, and we should hear more from them this week. So that's our piece of it.
Great, thank you, Corinne.
So Tom,
Yes.
the one other thing too, there have concerts, and answer to the question, concerts have been held out there. Rio Vista Chamber of Commerce and so I'm Jim Wheeler, president of the chamber. Several years ago, we did hold concerts out there. So the Chamber of Commerce held concerts. So there have been a number of different things, including concerts that have been out there. The Starlight Stage was actually a concert out there. Or I think we may have actually done two before I went back to the chamber.
Great, thank you. You know, I think this is a good time for me to initiate sending this around. This is a sign up for people who are interested in helping out, volunteering in some capacity. We're not saying what. And we're hoping that, because a lot is undefined right now, right? We're not sure what the state is going to allow us to do. But if you're interested in getting involved and helping with the park, I'm going to send this around this side of things.
Can I address that last point?
Yes, please.
The answer to what I can do is this program. Heck, I'm a lawyer, I should be able to speak live. You want me to talk?
If you talk into the mic, then
Oh,
people
It'll be
on the recording can hear it.
No one ever told me I was too quiet before. That's wonderful. Could you tell my son that I was too quiet? The answer to what we will allow to do is really we will be allowed to do a lot. If our proposal is accepted, the nature of what we're going to be allowed to do will be pretty broad as our imagination and people power can allow. The thing we have to bear in mind, and the reason we wanted to step up and be involved, is we have to follow two sets of protocols, basically. We have to follow their protocols for events in the state recreational area. And we also have to follow like their interpretive protocols. So it has to be accessible, it has to be, it has to have things available to make everyone will be able to participate. And the reason I'm uniquely situated to do that is because I've done it most of my life in one capacity or another, in one group or another. And I guess I'm a big paperwork person, so I should be able to read all the regulations, figure out how to comply with them, and then come into the community and recruit people to help me execute them. And that's why we're so excited to be here tonight and see all of you. Thank you.
Kids allowed to have alcohol or gambling?
No, those are two restrictions.
They won't allow it.
Correct. That's my understanding. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be some way to facilitate that, but like when we had our event there, we were not allowed to have alcohol.
They don't be considered gambling.
I know.
So is a raffle.
That's a good question. Well, raffle is a different category. Now, raffle has its own set of regulations in California now.
When I got a state park permit for our striper derby there, our club was not allowed to have a raffle because it was on state property.
Yeah, there are a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
The other thing is that raffles are very, very tightly regulated in California as of about 2 years ago. So that's a whole nother thing.
Okay, other questions?
For you, Eric, you commented on the money right now, basically the income and the revenue. With the previous operator, were the numbers fairly consistent? And then also, same question about attendance and, attendance at the park.
So I don't have access to the financials from the previous operator or under state parks, so I'm extrapolating based on our experience. So because like when they put it out to bid, obviously they didn't want to show all that was just bleeding red ink for forever and ever, which is probably the case. But we're probably losing less money than under maybe either the state parks or the previous concessionaire. But we're still not able to really break even just because of the deferred maintenance situation. And then I believe also attendance has kind of gone down in the last 10 years because the previous concessionaire didn't really market much. Neither does the state park. I mean, this park is really kind of used more as an overflow. Like people go into the state park website, and if they run out, they go to other parks to try to find camping. But there's really very few campgrounds this close to the Bay Area. So they find usually a lot of our camping customers come in from the Bay Area, to be honest with you. A lot of them are either scout troops or sometimes family groups, school groups of the type. And they come in, and then camping generates probably about 60–80% of the revenue for this park. I've looked at other parks, for example, like Rancho Seco, which is in Elk Grove or Wilton area. They generate probably like 3 times the revenue of this park with the same size. So I do believe this park is underperforming. And partly that's because the amenities of the park, this is built probably in the 50s and 60s. So a lot of it's dry camping instead of a full hookup RV park, which is what people are looking for these days. And then also the state park rules does not allow people to stay beyond 30 days. So a lot of, we're turning away a lot of people that wanted to stay longer.
Can you comment on what the numbers are like? How many individuals are coming through?
So this is one of the major, so this is something that perhaps the local Rio Vista community doesn't realize, is that this park is a major driver for tourism in the area. So on a typical weekend in the summer, the park has probably 500 to 1,000 people that'll come in, and we send them all into town. They'll come into Lyra's shop, but also they come in and patronize the restaurants, the other type of facilities. In fact, if you look on the Brennan Island website, most of the people are, say good things about the town of Rio Vista. They may not have good things to say about the park, but they'll say like, hey, Rio Vista is such a great town. We really enjoyed it. But the accommodations was so cheap that we don't think we'll come back. But I was like, well, where else could you come and, stay for $30 a night? You can't get into a hotel. You can't, there's no other private campgrounds that you could get into at that price. So.
And is Tower Park nearby a major competitor of yours?
I don't believe that their price is $100 a day, and probably like I think it's over a couple $1,000s a month, so not really I would say. But so there's two different price tiers. One for, I mean, this is kept. Let me go ahead and pass out this handout, which shows the rates for the Brannan Island. If you didn't pick it up over there, I'll pass this out. But it's $10 for day use and about $36 for camping. So that's probably as low as you're going to get in this area.
How does it compare with the county park on Sherman as far as prices?
I think Sherman Island at one point was, fairly inexpensive, but I know now it's pretty comparable to what Brannan Island charges. And then Sherman Island also is more dry camping, so they have less facilities. They have like maybe one bathroom for like a few hundred people that comes in, but it draws in a lot of kite surfers, is my understanding. So it's a little different crowd. So that crowd used to launch at Windy Cove probably back in 30 years ago, but right now they all moved on to Sherman Island.
Yeah, another factor here is if you want to visit Rio Vista or actually anywhere in Delta, you want to find a place to stay. There's not much there. You would have one motel now. And so I've always
The bed and breakfast just open.
yeah, okay, well, there's some Airbnb. And there's actually B&B that is now open, so that's helping. We hope that at some point this hotel will actually. But beyond that, there's not much here, yeah. Hope for more. So I've always imagined that when people come for events like the Master, they must stay, at least some of them stay there.
Yeah, at major events like the Bastard, we do get a lot of people that come in. There's also at one point a visitor center that, in fact, the sign is still there. It says, California Visitor Center, which is like a welcome center and it's right on Highway 160, which is a major entry point into Rio Vista and in the Delta in general. But that since the last closure, that visitor center has not been reopened. So right now our kiosk kind of doubles as a visitor center. We hand out, different type of, Delta and Rio Vista literature. We give out Discover Rio Vista as well as Delta Light there. And we direct people into the Delta as a point of entry. So I would say probably, on an average year, we might service 10,000 people, in that capacity. So it's quite a lot of people that we're servicing at this park. And a lot of this activity may not be visible to people because, in Rio Vista, because you just see people coming, but you don't realize as they're coming up 160, they do stop in at Brannan Island first often.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to speak into that?
Yeah. Is not working?
Yeah.
Yep, turn it on.
Can you hear me? I'm Jay Anderson. You guys might recognize that name. I'm the one that sent out this notice originally a month ago or so. So thank you all for coming. One of the things that I heard on feedback on Facebook, because I read all the comments, was the hours of the park and the entrance. And I wondered, when you have campers there, is it open 24 hours? Are they allowed to come and go into Rio Vista, et cetera? Is the gate locked?
So the park gate, we try to open from sunrise to an hour after sunset, which is what's stipulated in our contract. And we would like to keep it open longer, but due to the let's say I mean, it's on a major road on 160. So we believe our job is to kind of protect people that are camping there. So you could leave, but we don't really want people driving from, off the highway and coming in and possibly committing some illegal activities at night. So, crime is a bit of concern after dark in the park, because based on, I've not heard, I mean, there have been situations in the past before we took over management where, people have reported that, there were some sort of incidents that happened after dark.
Well, I'll just mention the one other thing that I heard was fishermen, fisherwomen, fishers, whatever you are. Fish along with the tide. And sometimes the tide does not correspond with the rising and setting of the sun. And so I know there's some concern amongst some that it would be nice to have it open earlier sometimes. And then, Corinne, when you get the events things situated, if someone has a large event planned, they should come to you for a permit?
No. Events are permitted through the state process. I would just be facilitating particular events that might happen there and coordinating volunteers in general for the park. But the park is still available for anyone that wants to have a special event that has nothing to do with the foundation.
Okay.
You just have to contact the state and ask if you can you can apply for a special event permit. Anybody can do that.
Okay, and that could allow, if that event started earlier or later, it could hopefully then coordinate with the concessionaire for special hours or whatever. Is that correct?
We're not proposing that we take over all of that. We're just proposing that we organize and facilitate some events, but that doesn't preclude the public's right to have full events.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you for asking. That was a great question.
Okay, any other comments? Yes.
Mentioned passes, yearly passes, annual passes. What percentage of those passes, what percent cut does Brannan Island get, since those are sold through the state? On launch, you have launch passes, you have the daily use passes for the state. Does Brannan Island receive any money? If I go online and I buy my pass through the state of California, does Brannan Island receive any of that funds?
So we support state park programs, but we do not receive revenue if you buy a state park pass. We only receive the revenue for Brannan Island specific pass that we sell. But we completely support all the state park programs, and there are many programs where you can even get a state park pass for free. For example, you could go into the local library here and check out state park pass and come in for free. Yes.
So to get a Brannan Island pass, you have to get it at the gate then? Is that where you do it?
Correct. Yeah, you would just come into the kiosk when we come in, and there is a day use pass of $65. That money goes directly into the park. And then there's a boat launch pass. It's only usable at Brannan Island, and it's $165 for a boat launch for an entire year. And that goes directly into supporting the park operations.
When you say for a year, is it a year from the date of purchase or is it from?
It's a calendar year, so it's January to December.
Okay.
But if you buy a pass, let's say in December, we basically give you the next year for free. So, you know, if you buy it toward the end of the year.
Then you get 13 months out of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Jerry Nolan, I was pleasantly surprised, December 15th, I dry camped in Yosemite National Park. So as I approached the gate, I was ready to pay the $36 a night to camp. And I was pleasantly surprised when they handed me a lifetime free pass because I'm a veteran. Does that pass work over there? If you don't have any veterans right on it, is that?
Yosemite is a federal facility, national park, yes.
Right.
So it's a different system from the state park system. The state park system has a distinguished veteran pass, and you could get there's certain criteria you have to be a distinguished veteran. I believe you have to be either disabled or have won the Congressional Medal of Honor. So it's not like any veteran gets a free pass. There's also not a veterans discount at this point, to my understanding.
But if you have that veterans pass that you're talking about, then it's free.
That is correct. Yeah, distinguished veterans allow you to basically camp and use any park in the state park system for free.
See, how's the park leased?
As a concession, we do not receive, we do not have rangers on site. So we use a combination of camp posts and occasionally private security to fulfill that need.
There's no other questions, then.
Yes.
The reason why I'm here, you guys have given me just a minute. I've grown up on the Delta. I know how important Brannan Island is for fishermen. I've worked for the Fishing Different magazine for several years. I've deckhanded for 5+ years for one of the top guides here in the state of California out of Brannan Island. One of the biggest problems that I have. Well, let me stop for a second. I am also the president and co-founder of Recreation for Veterans. We put on events throughout the state of California, free events for veterans, fishing events and hunting events. One of the reasons I came here, when Brannan Island reopened 2 years ago or whenever it was, I was contacted by several local fishermen that I have connections with regarding the hours of the park. I contacted Eric. Let him know the concerns of the fishermen. Hey, look, we have sturgeon fishermen who fish at night. They want to go out. They want to be able to come back at 2 o'clock in the morning and get out of the park. Or they want to come in at 2 o'clock in the morning to fish the tides. Can't do it. At the time, they were only open at like 7 a.m. When I called to talk to him, our conversation on the phone, this is what I was told flat out. I don't care about fishermen. How do you run this facility when you say, I don't care about fishermen? That was what he told me. I don't care about the fishermen. How much money comes in from fishermen? These guides who launch there. When we launched ours, and when I was deckhanding, we'd bring in 3 to 5 clients every morning who came in and they paid cash for parking. There are multiple guides who come into the park and bring clients in who pay. If you don't care about fishermen who are bringing revenue into your park, you don't care about making money. Now, okay, if you want to address that.
What I want to do is I want to intervene here because we are very aware that there are improvements that can be made in the way the park is operating. And one of the things that a volunteer group can do is to work on addressing them. So that if there's this issue that Jay mentioned, and you've mentioned about hours and whatnot, I mean, I'm not a fisher person, so I don't know. I assume that people use their boats to fish. Is that right?
A majority of them out of Brannan Island, yes.
Right, and so you've got your boat and your rig and everything inside. And the boat launch ramps are open. They don't close down, do they?
The gate does.
So the boat launch is a day use function, so it's open from sunrise to sunset. And when the state park operated, they actually literally like wrote you a ticket if you didn't do that. So there is, if you need to operate or get on your, or to, you know, maybe unlaunch after hours, you could reserve a campsite. You could come and go, you know, as, you know, with 7x24, but there is a criminal element that operates near the park. And if we leave the gates open, so any member of the public to come and drive in, there have been incidents in the past. So we have to balance everything, you know, against this public safety needs of the public, including those park users are camping there. And I have not talked to this gentleman, you may have talked to other members of my staff. We do care about all members of the public that we serve, including fishermen. And we have relayed some of your concerns to the state parks. They have told us that charter is a regulated activity, that you cannot operate out of the park without a permit. So that's what we've been told. So we are just there to enforce the rules that are given to us by the state parks. We do not come up with the rules. So if you have an issue with the way that the state wants to operate the facility, you could, you know, relay those concerns through your lawmaker, through the public process there. But, you know, we're given a set of parameters that we could operate, and that's set by the state park system.
Okay, so number one, this is the problem right here. This is the problem with the park. He just said he didn't talk to me. That's bullshit. I spoke, excuse my language. I spoke with him on the phone. Okay. I spoke with him personally on the phone. I tracked him down. I came to the park, got his phone number. I spoke to him personally.
I'm sorry, I do not know who you are, sir.
You don't know who I am. Really? Okay, hang on.
Hold on a second.
Can
I am not going to allow this to turn into a big old grievance session. If you want to talk about this and try to solve the problem,
okay, but
then stay after and we will do that.
I thought the meeting was to solve the problem. He's saying he doesn't know who I am. This is the man.
I have received a permit regarding your organization. I'm aware of who Rexford that is, but I do not know you personally, and I've not spoken with you previous to this meeting. So.
This is the problem. His management style, okay? We brought in last year, we had a permit. We had a permit for 125 people for an event that we've done for 10 straight years at that park, with the exception of COVID. When we showed up at the park,
you know, you're going to go on and on with this, and I want to know if there's anyone else who has any questions or comments before we adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn the meeting. That's the problem. The meeting was called to address these situations.
Hold on.
No, I'm done.
We're not going to.
This is why I was not going to come, is because nobody wants to sit here and listen to the problem of the management style of the park. Go to the park. Drive into the park right now and you pull up to the launch ramp facility and the camp host has a pit bull standing there growling and barking at you as you drive to the launch ramp. That is not welcoming to people who want to come to the park. You need to make this a welcoming environment.
All right.
And when you have somebody running the program who I don't know who you are, you're a fucking liar.
That's
okay.
No. You asked me to come here to talk and you won't even let me talk and you won't hear the solution.
Anyway. Sorry about that. Anyone else?
Get rid of it.
I have something right there.
Find better management for the park.
Is there a way that, you know, some of these places have an exit you can get out because they have those spike strips in there, you know, they get out but they can't get in that way. Is there a way to put that in so they get out at any time?
I do believe there's 7x24 access if you're a camper. I mean, we allow people, you could, if you want to fish after hours, you could just reserve a campsite. I think that's a very easy solution.
Sure,
It's only $31 in the off season, $36 during the.
but you couldn't leave though, right?
You could leave, yes, you could leave, yeah,
You can still leave?
anytime, you can leave anytime, in
Okay.
fact, yeah.
So what's the problem? then?
Yeah, some of this is communication, so.
Yeah,
So, can I clarify? So it's not a public launch, it's a park, it's a private park launch.
I believe it
Well, I mean,
qualifies as a public launch, yes.
That's, well,
It's not 24 hours.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to think of ways of, because I don't stay in the park, I live. It's a 45 minute drive for me to tow my boat here, but Brannan is my preferred location because it's the best. Hands down, the best boat launch on the entire Delta. The challenge is sometimes access.
And I completely understand that, but you do understand that some of the launches here, it's not just this launch, but some of the launches here in the Delta, there is a security issue. Especially, I mean, we're just trying to protect the boaters as much as anyone, but there are several launches in the Delta where like you basically take your chance parking your car there because the window would just be broken by the time you come back. So we don't want to have that situation either. And if we don't have some type of, limited access at night, this is a 300-acre facility. It's not like we're patrolling, one little launch. They come in, they could be anywhere in the park. And there could be illegal activity going on, we would have very limited control over that.
Well, and I understand all that.
And it's just to protect the boaters as much as anybody.
Yeah, I'm looking for solutions to that portion of it because those of us who boat understand the risks of going to Belton's Landing, which is one of the places that doesn't have.
I don't want to mention names, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't, it's a county facility. We all know that there are challenges in certain places. As soon as another place that gets a lot of increased tours from the cops, but it is also a place that has an unsavory element that can sometimes do things we want. The only issues that I know of that have ever hit Brannan Island personally, that have touched me personally with my friends and immediate family, was a battery stolen in broad daylight, four slots away from the camp post on the boat launch. So, but people are going to do whatever they have, and you've already gotten rid of the homeless element that was hanging out the back of the thing under the previous. That was a previous vendor. There was a homeless camp in the very back of they were hanging out back there and they hadn't been ran out, but you've taken care of all that. So I think you've done a great job on trying to control the elements that get in there. And I appreciate that, but I'm trying to figure out a way to increase your revenues and the activity and to make it more attractive to some of the folks that really want, there's a certain core element of people that don't camp there because it's, I'm not gonna pay $30 a night to stay in some place where I can drive 40 minutes and sleep in my own bed. So unless I'm down here for the Rio Vista Bass Festival, and then I love to spend 3 or 4 nights down there because it's a whole lot easier to go across there or to hop in my boat and go across. So I think there would be an advantage to trying to figure out if there is a legitimate way, a safe way that we could increase some level of access to the park in other hours during different tides and stuff, because sunrise is one portion of it, but the tides and the fishing changes. So, and that's a major issue. And all it does is drive people to go to Brannan Island or Pittsburgh or some of the other places. They make them run from those directions. So I'm just, if it's a matter of cash flow and some way to bring more of that stuff in, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at.
And I completely understand there are public launches that are accessible 7/24 and limiting access perhaps, to daylight hours is somewhat limiting, but this is the same model that we've been operating under, from the state parks when it was operated under previously. So I don't believe we're changing the operating model, and I believe the park is accessible, if you simply reserve a campsite. And I understand, for some of those that don't want to spend the extra money or perhaps don't like those.
Well,
parks.
it is a different, the access is different than it was even from the state park and from the previous vendor. It was, I could drive up there and launch my boat at any time of the day or night. Under the previous two operations, so.
I'm not trying to contradict your narrative, but I was there when the state parks operated in 2022. There was a sign out the front.
You're talking 2022.
2020, there was a sign out.
The previous vendor.
Perhaps. There was a sign that said that, the launch is closed, at sunset and you will be cited. And I saw them literally roll out tickets to cars that were parked in the boat launch if you didn't get out by sunset. So I saw this firsthand with my eyes.
That was that post-COVID, we don't have a vendor. We're trying to do the best we possibly can. When the state ran it before the previous vendor took it over in 2012.
I welcome a voter that wants to come in and run this park to make different, to make a change. I mean, that could be a solution. I think, in fact, when we took over, we had trouble operating a base shop. We reached out to your club to see if you guys want to run it, and the answer was no. So.
Well, it sounds like we've identified an issue that needs a lot of work. Given the history that you're aware of. The system. Right? You're saying that at one point, that boat launch was accessible
until COVID,
around the clock.
Until COVID, it
Prior
was
to
accessible
COVID.
It was accessible 24/7.
Okay.
And if you poked your nose in there, and you just did a happy loop, there was about a 90% chance somebody won't stop you. Because you might have been up to something. Somebody was, I don't know who they were, but if it was a camp post or who they were, but if your headlights hit one of the camp posts and you were just out driving around, somebody would stop you, but you could take your boat and launch it. I could launch my boat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Until COVID.
That bit of information is important. Because it speaks to a regime in the past that was possible. And are you seeing that other state parks with boat launch facilities?
I wish I had more experience with other boat launches.
Okay, well, we are and will be in continued contact with the state park administration. And so issue we can raise.
I think they're currently actually opening before sunrise, because I've been getting there at sunrise, the gate's already open, it's still a little bit dark.
Yeah, the camp host opens it pretty early. Yeah, she opens it like probably an hour before sunrise.
That's what I'm thinking, like 5:30.
Yeah, so I really, and there's a phone number on there. You could call her and she'll come in and open it even earlier. So I mean, it's just I know there's a lot of complaints about it, but the camp host, we have her response to the customers.
They've been opening up early, I know that.
Yeah, we are hearing that, so.
Who's she work for? Whoever the gate operator is, who's the camp host work for you, right, Spain? For you?
The camp hosts are volunteers.
Okay. So there are no state support personnel at the park. At all.
Yeah.
So he has a question.
Oh, so it's not really a question, it's that we've got a captive audience on 160. We've got all those people driving by. I've been in Rio Vista for, I don't know, 4 years maybe. And I didn't know that there was a beach out there. I had no idea. So what are we gonna do to bring in more revenue, bring in more people? You could put beach available, you could put swimming available. I mean, I don't know what the state ramifications are with regard to advertising, media. Do you have a social media person? Yeah.
So we would welcome a volunteer to help us out with social media. In fact, I'm doing that personally, and it's really a lot of my time. And the swim beach was not open probably 2-3 years ago. So, I actually personally, cleared out a lot of the brush. It was a lot, and I was a lifeguard there last 2 summers. So part of the problems we have opening up the beach is getting enough lifeguards and working with people.
Do you have to have a lifeguard there?
We do, yeah, so that's part of the
Unless you
requirement.
post it?
Yeah, so having, we gotten a couple of, folks from the Rio Vista pool now to work with us.
Tell them about the Facebook group.
But to keep this short, yes, we welcome volunteers to help us manage the social media account.
Okay, but what about drive, 160, there's a lot of cars now. And on both sides, so you've got the Windy, what is it called? The
Windy Cove.
Windy Cove, and then you've got the other side, so you've got both sides. A
So-
lot of faces, a lot of people, a lot of young people, a lot of people that you need to draw into the parks.
So this is an undervalued asset to the community in general, and we welcome the, help from the community to help us market and keep this open. Because some of this effort simply can't be automated. I mean, it's not as simple as like hiring a marketing agency or advertising agency. There's a lot of, volunteer work behind the scenes to keep a visitor center open, for example. And then we're not able to really staff the kiosks at reasonable hours. We have a lot of people driving through, for example, even handing out a park map and explaining to people what's in the park. That's not often a minute, 1 minute here. We need to have a person explain that. Also, maybe handing out, as I mentioned to you, handing out Delta Life, handing out Discover Rio Vista, telling people what's available. A lot of these things are ongoing conversations that require, maybe a volunteer docent to help us out, with that.
Is Rio Vista cleaning Brannan Island now? I mean, no big city, no city at all has really claimed Brannan Island.
So Brannan Island has a Rio Vista address, but it is not within city limits.
What county is?
It's in Sacramento County.
It's Sacramento, right? Yeah.
But it's the largest state park in this area. In fact, it's the one of two in the Delta. There's Delta Meadows in the lot 40 house or the other, and Frank's Track, but those are not as visible as Brannan Island.
There's so many people that are coming up down River Road, I guess it's River Road, that go along Sacramento area, Ileton, Walnut Grove, yeah. And that area that it's growing and a lot of wineries are developing out there. And then you have, just a myriad of places that are developing along the River Road. And I would think Milan would be part of it.
That's part of what this is about, is trying to get people to figure out how to get people there.
Yeah, it's a word.
So
It's had an article in the Discover Rio Vista magazine. Probably within the last year. I can't exactly remember which edition, but I know there was a Brannan Island article because Jan Vick did it. Maybe something like banners at the front entrance that you could see from 160 would be helpful. But this is what this meeting is about, coming up with ideas to help.
Yeah. So I think we are, if I could maybe segue off that. So one of the things we're trying to do is build an active Friends of the Parks group. So many of the parks in the state park system, for example, Mount Diablo actually has 2 Friends of the State Parks groups. So one of the things that I did when I started taking over management of Brannan Island was to see if there's already one in place. And there had been one that was maybe in existence 15 years ago, but all the members had kind of dissipated or retired or passed. So, we're in the process of restarting a new Friends of the Brannan Island group. And we would invite you to join that and help us to explore these ideas that you have and to help us make them reality.
And there is a Facebook group of Friends of Brannan Island.
Yeah, so it is already on Facebook, and I believe we have 500, 600 followers or members already.
Yes.
We moved out here about 10 years ago and we love it because it's rural. Like, we love the fact that it's rural, and not looking forward to California forever.
Yes.
We all like it.
And the battery storage plant.
And bizarre that Here we are trying to
Technically,
encourage
we're not
people to come out here at the same time.
Technically, we're not rural.
And it is also this, like we've experienced this, where, you know, I work in Antioch, which for me is a 22-minute commute. It's nothing. And yet, we'll try and get a repair technician to come out from Brentwood. Oh, no way, you're over the bridge, it's so far. It's not, they like
$8.
call for service for places and.
Yeah, we have the same.
Yeah, it's bizarre, like people think, like you said, like Sacramento County thinks it's 2.5 hours. It's not. But I don't know if I want them to know that.
It's the state farm. I want them to acknowledge the fact that they should be able to provide this man with all.
Well, I
the
mean, we
support
spent
he
time
needs.
with Sac County, like we are Sac County, and yet they won't come down and, you know, we had a foster care for a while, and the agency based in Sacramento did not like driving down here. But we are your county, like we are Sac County. I'm paying my taxes, providing service. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
So yes, I want more people to come to Brannan.
I think it's real clear that if we actually get a more active group of people here and make some noise, that we will get more resources, more attention. We've already got the attention of the district superintendent. Could not work it in to the individual schedule.
It's too far,
Because
right?
it's 2.5 hours.
But he has asked us,
Oh my God, I want to listen.
he's asked us to facilitate another gathering where they can be present with the schedule. We'll work on it. Yes,
A couple of things, not to belittle the fishermen and the boaters here, but one of the nuts to crack is that basically voting is on the decline and has been for a while. Gas hit $3. All the resorts on the loop, none of them are full. None of them are even half full.
You're not wrong. No, that's accurate. I mean.
So that's part of the nudge to crack. I mean, I want you to be concerned about the boat launch, but I am concerned if you're going to spend a ton of money and resources on redoing a marina, which will again be underutilized. You have an opportunity here, because this has been an underutilized property for generations, not just under your 2-year venue or the previous 5 years, or, you know, the generation before with the Park Service, the state. It has been underutilized for a very long time. And I think because of that, you should think outside the box. You've already answered, the two of you answered one of your questions, one of your concerns. Not enough nice places to stay in the area, not enough people coming. You should do glamping. People want to do camping, but they don't want to do the work. That's the trend. It's not a short-term, you know, trend. It's an arcing movement. So I think you should think about that, because you've already mentioned you have to redo the facilities anyway. So something to think about. Little things like engaging technology. You've talked heavily on social media. You're with your map. Maps are yesterday. What you should be doing is your little QR informational thing. Yeah, on your facilities. You've then freed up a body. You don't have to worry about staffing it because you've applied the tech, which everyone's got on their phones now anyway. The third thing I really want to impart with you, because of your timing, I would strongly encourage you to cozy up as quickly and as close as you can to the Sacramento San Joaquin Heritage District region, which is, you know, in its formative period right now. If you look at a map, you're almost dead center for their region. They're a natural to open the information center, because that's federal money, that's federal attention, that, you know, they're looking for things that they should be helping with. This is an ideal candidate.
What was that called? Sacramento?
It's the Sacramento
National Heritage Area.
National Heritage Area.
So to answer your question,
It's the
yes,
new big
we
thing.
are working on, you know, rolling out planting at the park. Yes, we anticipate to be part of the National Heritage Area effort.
But it's within the Heritage District.
So some of this is tied into staffing, because it's very difficult for us to really just maintain what we have right now. So doing new things usually requires more people and funding, so we're limited by that.
Okay. Anything else? We have a nice somebody sign up with the wrong
All things I've read.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be back in touch and